What's left on the summer to-do list for the Maple Leafs? We'll get into this and more on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's a daily Maple Leafs-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morisuti. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. I'll tell you what, typically I'm pretty stoked because I can use the Gametime app to get cheap tickets for the Jays and get some cheap Jays tickets and go down and see a ball game. I don't know how many more ball games I'm going to want to go and see this team moving forward. The performance I just saw against the Astros just now was absolutely horrid, my guy. Oh, boy. Good thing Money in the Bank's coming up. I bet you I could use the Gametime code to get $20 off for Money in the Bank.
There you go. Well, I already told people. People are like, "Oh, you're gonna go watch a Jays game?" I'm like, they're gonna have to pay me to go watch games. I ain't voluntarily paying full price for a Jays ticket. I'll tell you that much. So yeah, go use Gametime if you're ever gonna go and get a Jays ticket.
Yeah, make sure that you save yourself $20 because it's not worth the price of admission right now. That's for damn sure. At least you could get yourself a nice little discount, courtesy of our friends over at Gametime. So we're a couple of days into the summer now. You know, the first wave of free agency kind of come and gone, and we're now sitting, at the eve of July 3rd. It'll be the July 4th by the time the podcast comes out. And typically things start to get a little quiet from here on out. Usually it's only a couple of days of some signings, and then, the rest of the loose ends get tied up throughout the summer. So today I just want to talk about, what else the Maple Leafs have on their to-do list for the summer. And then we can get into, what else is going on with the Maple Leafs. It's funny, actually, we were talking about literally yesterday, like 3 hours prior to the announcement, if the Maple Leafs had figured out an ECHL affiliate yet. Sure enough, a few hours later, get an email from Leafs PR. We are now an affiliate of the Cincinnati Cyclones of the ECHL. So to answer the question that we asked yesterday, yes, the Maple Leafs do now have an affiliate with the East Coast League, the Cincinnati Cyclones. So I mean, it's not close, but it's not as far away as Newfoundland. So you could still pop down and see a game if you want to drive like 7-8 hours to go do that, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I did not know that there was a ECHL team in Cincinnati. They were kind of on my radar.
Oh, yeah. They've been there for a while. They've been there for a long, long time.
Is it bad that every time I think about Cincinnati, I just think of Bill Belichick? We're on to Cincinnati.
We're on to Cincinnati. Oh yeah, I don't blame you for that. That would make some sense. Any sports fan, any football fan knows that quote. Yeah, we're on to Cincinnati. Absolutely. And the Maple Leafs, moving on, they're on to Cincinnati now. The organization, at least, the Growlers have moved on, and they are now in Cincinnati. So, we do know that the Maple Leafs do like to have that 3-tier system. So I can assure you that there will be some prospects who filter their way down to Cincinnati, and the Maple Leafs are going to make sure that they get all of the resources that they'll need to best for their development. So I bet you the Cyclones are going to be super stoked to now be affiliated with the Maple Leafs full time, as they've got some money to back them up. So that's kind of the latest there. Really quickly before we get into what's left on the summer to-do list, what's going on with Jani Hakanpää, Dave? It sounded as though on July 1st that everything was all Gucci, that, the Jani Hakanpää was signing a 2-year deal here at the Maple Leafs, $1.5 million AAV. We talked about it, said, okay, decent defenseman, big boy, huge boy, hits like a freight train, depth defenseman though, number 6, number 7 type of guy. that there was some injury concern, that there was that report from Steve Simmons about the fact that, some believe that he may not play hockey again. Not much cartilage left on the knee. Is
bone on bone is how he put it. Thanks for that graphic image, Steve.
Yeah, not ideal. And it's not that we didn't think anything of it. We did bring up that report on on free agency when we were talking about the Hakanpää signing, but now it's kind of getting a little. It's getting weird because it hasn't been made official. Every other signing that the Maple Leafs have made has been official. It's been announced by the team. It's been tweeted out. It's been emailed out to the media. Jani Hakanpää, this signing has yet to become official. It's starting to get fishy.
Well, yeah, because basically Brad Treliving talked about him pretty much being on the team.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if the doctors really need to get maybe a second look at this knee. Like apparently the doctors cleared Hakanpää. The Leafs doctors cleared him according to Simmons. But yeah, the fact that we haven't heard anything, that's got me wondering. It's not a cap situation because the Leafs are not in that situation where they're well over the cap.
Nope.
And they can't register the contract. I'm wondering if they're starting to get a little, hearing the report, like people talking about the knee injury a little more. Maybe they're doing their due diligence on a little bit more.
Maybe. I mean, to say that the Maple Leafs doctors cleared Jani Hakanpää on his knee is hilarious, considering technically he wasn't allowed to speak to Jani or his representatives until July 1st. So the fact that they, within a couple hours already had him cleared is quite interesting, isn't it? That's fascinating, Dave. Absolutely.
You already know the agents sending out reports to all the teams before even that.
I'm making a joke about there being no tampering, Dave. No tampering, obviously, in this situation.
It's never tampering.
No, they got the reports. Within an hour, they got the reports. They got the medicals. They're able to clear them all by 12 o'clock. That's when this whole conversation started. There was no tampering here when it came to Jani Hakanpää. Absolutely not. No way, no how. But anyways, I don't know if they want him to go through some sort of physical or if they're second guessing themselves now because such other reports, varying reports are coming out. But it does kind of, it's a little eerie that we haven't seen this one get finalized and be made official when Treliving did speak on it. Like there was other signings that were in the hopper, as he said, but did not specifically mention anything that was happening. And we later found out that was the Philip Myers and the Dakota Mermies and the Cedric Pare deals that were in the hopper. This one for Hakanpää, he spoke on. Like he just flat out came out and said, yeah, good player, blah, 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 explained what they liked about him, why they signed him. And here we are. He's not signed though. So it is kind of weird what's going on here.
It's going to be weirder when we get to the weekend and they're still not and the next time, the fact too is we're not going to hear from Brad Treliving for a while, right? I'm assuming they're not going to. So it's going to be weird how they backtrack on that, right? Like the Leafs technically didn't announce that he was signed, but everybody else said he was signed. So I don't know how the Leafs kind of do that now. I don't think I've ever really.
By Treliving talking about him and talking about him joining the team, it kind of did act as an announcement, but then the signing wasn't made official by the team. So I don't know. Cap Friendly has it registered. It isn't Cap Friendly right now.
Yep.
For the next 2 days until they go bye-bye. So sad. So sad what's going on there. Yeah. But I was on Cap Friendly earlier today because with what we're going to be talking about in just a minute, what's left on the Leaf summer to-do list. It got me looking, at the RFAs, where the cap situation is for the Maple Leafs. Is there a trade that could potentially be made? And I'm looking, I'm like, okay, well, Hakanpää, it hasn't been made official, but he is technically, as of now, according to Cap Friendly, against the Maple Leafs cap, and he is signed to that 2-year deal. I don't know. It's something certainly that we'll be keeping track of over the next couple of days. We'll let you know if anything changes on the Jani Hakanpää situation. But as of now, officially, there has been no announcement about him signing his his 2-year deal with the Maple Leafs. We'll see where it goes. Coming up on the other side, let's get into our Leafs summer to-do list. So we'll get into that. Who's left to sign? Is there a trade afoot potentially? We'll get into all that and more on the other side. It's Mike DiStefano with Dave Morisuti. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Price on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets, and they've got those last-minute deals that allow you to save up to 60% off of buying tickets last minute for sports, comedy, theater events, and, Dave, pretty sure you could buy yourself some WWE events with the Money in the Bank. You got NXT, you've got SmackDown coming to Toronto this weekend. You could probably get yourself some last minute deals at a great price over on the Gametime app. They've got the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL. Save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano and Dave Morisuti with you as we are each and every weekday here on the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's a daily Maple Leafs podcast. You can find it wherever you find your podcast, whichever audio streaming platform you use, Spotify, iTunes, whichever one. And also you can watch the video form of the podcast up on YouTube. Just looked up Locked On Leafs. Hit subscribe. Leave us a comment down below. Your thoughts on the Maple Leafs offseason to this point. I'm curious to let you to hear what you guys think of what the Maple Leafs have done to this point and what else is left on the Maple Leafs summer to-do list. That's the discussion that we're about to have right now. So, Dave, when you take a look at what the Maple Leafs have done already this summer, they've shored up the blue line. They've brought in Chris Tanev. They've brought in Oliver Ekman-Larsson. We'll see on Jani Hakanpää. They've now signed a couple of, tweener defensemen, AHL depth guys who could, come up and play in a pinch if injuries do arise. They've got their goaltending tandem and trio really all set up with Stolarz and Matt Murray. What else is left on the summer to-do list for Brad Treliving and company, Dave?
Well, I was wondering if they were going to go out and address the third line center. I think maybe they currently have Max Domi penciled in there, which, if you ask people, maybe isn't what you want to see, because Max Domi flourished a little bit more just in a top six role. He seems to have a better feel for that, with his production.
I thought him and Matthews really clicked and looked great at the end of the season there. I thought they did. So if you can get a line of, Matthews, Domi, and Marner, if you can find someone to fill in that 3C hole, I think that really does lock up your top line. You could get yourself Nyes, Tavares, and Nylander as your second line, have Bobby McMahon and Kalle Järnkrok as your wing flanks. Like, you're looking at a pretty good top nine at that point who could provide a decent boost and pop offensively and are defensively responsible if you can get that 3C filled. So I'm with you. I don't know if they're going to do it. It's certainly something that's got to be on their radar as of now, and they still have Robertson and Dewar to get done. And this is assuming that the Hakanpää signing will go through. They have about $2 million in cap space that they could still work with, and they do need to add one more forward to make it all happen. Now, you put Dewar's contract in there, now all of a sudden that's down to about $1 million. If you think that he's going to make $1 million, now all of a sudden you don't have as much money as you thought. But then, you could always open up some cap space somehow, whether that's a potential trade of a David Kampf, maybe even a Timothy Liljegren. I've heard that that's another avenue the Maple Leafs can explore to open up cap space. Like, yes, they signed him to an extension, but it doesn't mean they're sold on him. And if the right deal comes along, they'll certainly strike. But I'm with you. I still think that the Maple Leafs would be better off if they found a proper third center. And I've got a name for you, actually, because it's something that I was looking into earlier today, because I had the same train of thought as you did. And I was like, well, what could a solution possibly be for the third line center role? So here's one that the Maple Leafs didn't pounce on that was an option and available last week that obviously the Maple Leafs did not go ahead and make happen. But Kevin Hayes was available. Kevin Hayes at 50% capacity, 50% cap hit was available, and the Pittsburgh Penguins pounced on it and also got a second round pick in return for taking on Kevin Hayes at a 50% reduced rate. That could have worked as a really solid 3C hole, but that's no longer an option, obviously. So here's one for you. Jean-Gabriel Pageau. What would you make of a potential trade of J.G. Pageau to the Toronto Maple Leafs? He's got $5 million left on his contract annually, $5 million AAV cap hit. He's got 2 more years left on his deal. He's only 31. I thought he was older than that, but he's only 31 years old. So it's over 30, but it's not like, over the hill type of age. I would imagine that the Leafs would like to have, a decent chunk of that contract retained if possible, if not with a third team who's looking to just get to the cap floor or something like that, or whether or not the Islanders will be open to it. Probably not. You're probably looking at a third party team, but if they can make it work, I think that Jean-Gabriel Pageau would check a lot of boxes when it comes to adding a potential third line center for this team.
I've always been a fan of Pageau. I think he got a little miscasted when he joined the Islanders. Like initially when he joined the Islanders, he solidified the center ice position there. And I think he's been playing a little more like in a role that maybe doesn't suit him too much. I mean, obviously remember what he was like in Ottawa. He was a good player over in Ottawa, just a smart two-way player, kind of, and a guy that if you do need a second line center because of an injury, he is capable of playing that role. I just view him more as a 3C.
Yeah.
I just don't know if Lamoriello will be willing to retain. And like the Anaheim Ducks just got themselves to the cap floor because that could have been the avenue to get them to retain. But they have abundance of cap space, so they can even just do that easily.
Weaponize it to get yourself to get yourself an asset. Like if a team's willing to pay an asset to get you to take on a little chunk of that money, I think it would make some sense. It's not just this year, it's next year as well. So like if you're not going to use it, if you don't use it, you'll lose it, as they say. You could at least get something for it potentially. And maybe even the Maple Leafs, if they want, they could try and include like David Kampf into the deal to try and make the money work. Possibly. I don't know if that's something that either team would be interested in, either the team that's taking on money or the New York Islanders. But I think that would certainly be a very interesting trade possibility, not at the full $5 million pop, but if they could find a way to get half of that retained at $2.5 million, I think Pageau would fill a tremendous 3C role for this Leafs team.
Yeah, I think he would too. And like I'm looking at the roster for the Islanders right now, like Cizikas is being paid $2.5 million, but I think he's someone maybe that they could put in that role if they do look at a potential David Kampf deal.
Well, I did see, the reason why I brought him up is I did see that they were entertaining trade offers for him. Like I know that I think Arthur Staple of The Athletic was writing like a mailbag piece, and somebody asked which Islander could you see getting traded this summer, and he specifically brought up Jean-Gabriel Pageau as a guy who's no longer, I guess, worth $5 million to that team. Like what they've done, Barzal, they brought in Bo Horvat. Pageau's no longer like top 6 guy, and don't need to be paying him $5 million. So Pageau at this point, kind of outside looking in a way. They feel like they could move him, and he's expendable at this point. That's what I was looking for. He's an expendable piece for them.
I think the Athletic and Daily Faceoff even had him as a buyout candidate.
There you go. So
right.
now I guess they didn't buy him out, so ultimately that probably means that they're not 100% like we need to trade this guy type of deal. But would they be if they were contemplating buying him out? At least if you retain half the money, you're only using up those slots for 2 years as opposed to stretching it to a 4 years with the buyout. Plus, you could get an asset in return. So yeah, perhaps I think that would be an interesting scenario for the Maple Leafs to maybe try and go down at some point. Let's continue on the other side, taking a look at what the Maple Leafs still need to do. Their summer to-do list going throughout the rest of the summer here as we start to hit the dog days. They're right around the corner. We'll continue this conversation next on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DeStefano and Dave Morisuti, as always, and we are discussing what the Maple Leafs summer to-do list might look like. We talked about potentially trying to find a better solution for the third line center role. Max Domi is one option. David Kampf is another, but maybe there's a better option out there in the trade market. Probably not much. I took a peek at what's out there in free agency, and in terms of like a bona fide third line center, there's really not a whole lot out there that's available on the secondary free agent market. So you're probably looking to fill that void via trade, if at all possible. But one of the more obvious things that is left on the summer to-do list is get these RFAs dealt with, right? Like that's the one that's on the nose. But they've got Connor Dewar and Nick Robertson, who both they were qualified and they're restricted free agents right now, left without a deal. I don't believe, actually I'll double check if Connor Dewar has ARB rights or not, or if he's just a restricted free agent. I will have to double check that. I'm just going to do that right now. But we already know kind of the situation with Nick Robertson, where the report came out that he did ask for a trade. It sounds as though Brad Treliving is less keen on for sure making that happen. Maybe he'll try and bring him back. I don't know what's going to happen there, but still that is something that they have to figure out throughout the offseason. And Connor Dewar is arbitration eligible. I would imagine he'll come in around $1 million, like fourth line, wingers like that usually come in around that number. If they can't, they'll probably figure out something even before the arbitration date. But I would imagine that would kind of be a number for Connor Dewar. And then we'll see what ends up happening with Robertson. If he really doesn't want to sign, I mean, I guess it's a possibility. But, I mean, if he doesn't want to sign and the Maple Leafs don't want to trade him, what are you going to do? Like, he can't really go anywhere else. Yeah. You know what I mean? So we'll see what they end up doing there, but that's, another thing to worry about this offseason.
Yeah, I think the Robertson one is going to be one that's going to linger for a bit. I don't know how many teams are calling for him right now because they probably also want to know what his contract situation is going to be like. I don't think it's going to be hell of expensive because what can he really ask for? And I just think maybe the Leafs are just trying to convince him with a new coach, hey, there's opportunity here, potentially, right? Like nothing's guaranteed.
Well, if the Leafs don't make another addition up front, which they haven't made a single new signing up front yet, so whether or not that remains to be the status quo throughout the summer, I guess we'll see. But they haven't made an addition, which means if you go and you look at cap friendly and you put together, actually, you know what, I've got it here, so let me just pull it up in 1 second here. Do I have this? Yeah, like if you look at what's going on, I should probably share the screen so that everyone can see what's going on. That might help people as opposed to just talking about it. I could share it and show everyone what's going on here. But yeah, so this is what it looks like right now for the Maple Leafs based on what is signed and what they do have for Toronto, about $2 million in cap space. And there's one spot that is open. Now, if you put Bobby McMahon here, there, put him on the third line, there's a top six role for Nick Robertson, right? He could go in and he could play with Tavares and Marner or Tavares and Nylander, however you want to split that. Doesn't really matter. Or, even Nyes could go play. Like, there's a role here for a top six if they want to give him that opportunity. Whether they see Bobby McMahon in that role more so, or Nick Robertson, I guess, remains to be seen. Or maybe they like Max Domi up in that role and they put up Pontus Holmberg potentially at 3C. Maybe David Kampf goes 3C and Holmberg 4C. Like, we don't really know. There's a lot of different combinations that obviously could occur, but there is a potential top six left wing spot available should the Maple Leafs give him that opportunity.
Yeah, that's the part there that I'm kind of like, did the Leafs not potentially go out? I mean, I'm sure they were out looking for a top six, middle six winger. It's just, no, some of those guys are being paid more. And I think the Leafs wanted to pay. Like, look at what Tarasenko got. He got 4.75 with Detroit, which isn't bad for Tarasenko, but that's more than what the Leafs wanted to pay, right? I know that they wanted Jeff Skinner. That was a $3 million deal with Edmonton.
Yeah,
which I would have signed Jeff Skinner for $3 million for sure. Like,
I think he picked Edmonton, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Leafs and Edmonton were kind of the two front runners there, and he says, "Let me go play with Connor McDavid."
Yeah. That would have been a great filler there to play some, plug in there on the top line. Probably would have been that Bertuzzi replacement. Nice, could have played in the second line. That would have looked good. That would have looked really, really good.
Yeah.
I will be honest. That would have been great to get Jeff Skinner in here. And Jeff Skinner loves to score in Scotiabank Arena. We know that. We've seen him do that many a times since he's become a Buffalo Sabre. So would have been nice.
Would have been an easy move. Just a couple hours north, man.
Yeah.
Not even. Hour and a half.
Yeah. Hour and a half north of the border. Absolutely. But now he decides to go north of the border and way westward out to Edmonton. I can't say I blame him based on the season the Oilers just had, and they're pretty much running it back with additions, like bringing in Skinner and Arvidsson, and didn't really lose anyone of any significance. That's pretty tidy business for the Edmonton Oilers. So they've gotten better since losing in Game 7 of a Stanley Cup final. So yeah, like getting the RFAs dealt with clearly is another thing that Brad Treliving will have on his summer to-do list. Outside of that, though, like probably still, like even if he doesn't sign a big ticket free agent forward, there's not many left available. There are a couple of guys who are out there still in the secondary market, but I would imagine they still probably get a depth forward signing or two just to go in and compete. Those guys who, could be considered like tweeners, AHL, NHL type of players where, injuries occur. They could come up and play a role and potentially compete for a fourth line spot in training camp, much like we saw Noah Gregor do last year. So I think that there's still probably at least one or two depth forward signings still to come. I think it'd be incredibly I don't see them going an entire offseason without signing at least one potential NHL forward. I think that would be
or at least trading for one.
Or trading for one, yes, correct.
Like
filling out the forward depth.
There are teams that are going to have to make some moves. Like the Washington Capitals have now, if they take away the Backstrom deal,
and Oshie.
Is it Oshie too?
Yeah. Remember at the end of the year, Oshie, there was the back issue.
Yeah, he's pretty much broken.
Yeah, so you take his money and they're compliant. I was having that exact conversation with a buddy of mine earlier today, so I
honestly did, and I'm pretty sure I wrote about TJ Oshie's injury, so I should have known better on that one. But there are a couple teams that are like the Oilers are technically over the cap. I think they want to move Evander Kane. That's been the rumor there. Vegas is over the cap, but they'll find someone to get hurt and just put them on LTIR. So That's going to happen there. So
Well, apparently they're going to trade for Mitch Marner if you're listening to enough Saravalli. That's a conversation for another day, though, Dave.
It is. It is for sure. Yeah, I think the trade route still has some potential there. I think like the way that Brad Chilton kind of spoke after day one of free agency is like we're not done after 1 day, probably not done after 2 days. I think this is going to be a little bit of a teams are really going to reassess where their positions are after that freakishly crazy day one of free agency. Yeah. So I think like once the storm kind of settles and teams finally realize what they got and what they need, I think you're going to see some trades. Like we already saw one. Robbie Fabry went to Anaheim, which that was more of another one of those cap dumps because Detroit is looking to make some money because they got a few RFAs they got to get done. So the Leafs are just fortunate that they don't have the list of RFAs like some other teams do right now.
Yeah, like the two that they have, I mean, Robertson's a little more difficult just based on the report that he just flat out may not want to sign with the team, would prefer a change of scenery. Connor Dewar, I don't expect for that to be a very difficult negotiation. And even if it goes to arbitration, I don't anticipate him getting a whole lot here. So there's money. There's money for these guys. Like I said, even before signing them, like there's still $2 million that the Maple Leafs have. And that's with a 20-man roster. So that's not even, looking at, a 21-man roster. No, 20 guys. Yes, 20-man roster. So there's some space to do something. And as we noted, could open up even more space with possibly David Kampf or a Timothy Liljegren trade. There's some couple $1 million if you move off of one of those guys. Actually, last question, and then we'll kind of wrap things up here. We do have to show the Cody Rhodes video, by the way, before we really wrap things up here. But if you can't find a solution with Nick Robertson and he still doesn't want to be here, he's got a sour taste in his mouth for how things kind of went down last year, how, he didn't like that he became a cap casualty again, despite how well he was playing. So if he really does dig his heels in and he doesn't sign and he wants to get a fresh start, would you be willing to use him as a sweetener in a deal to get like Kampf's contract off the books in some sort of trade? Like, let's say, I don't even know, like if you could move Kampf and Robertson to Anaheim for them to take on 50% of the contract of John Gabriel Pajot, and then he ends up here in kind of a weird three-way type of trade. Like, would you be interested in attaching Robertson as an asset to unload a Kampf deal if it came to it?
I wouldn't hate that. You kind of get kill two birds with one stone, right? If Robertson really wants to get a new opportunity, you deal with that. That Kampf contract, which we know isn't exactly a great one long-term for this team, you now kind of sleep easy knowing you got that one kind of taken care of, right? I think with Robertson, I would like for him to stick around. Like that would be the first obvious situation you want. But if he digs in here and he really doesn't want to stick around, if he just feels like it's time for him, then you know what? You've done what you can. You try. I mean, I'm sure Trilling's going to try his best to convince him. You might as well use him in a way that's going to help the team, right? Yeah. Even if you would rather get more out of him, more for him back, at some point you just kind of have to maybe just get what you can and make it work.
I just don't see a role for him on this team if they bring in another top 9 forward. If things are status quo and they don't bring in another guy, I think there's a clear and easy path for him to get some top 6 minutes and be given every opportunity to be an effective player. I mean, he would have been a 20-goal scorer this year if he had played all 82 games. Like, he was an effective goal scorer this season. I think he was on pace for 22 goals this year. Only ended up playing 56 because of just sitting out and being a cap casualty, yo-yoing up and down because he was waivers ineligible. But if they bring someone in, I don't see a spot for him at that point. So it kind of just depends how else they attack the offseason. If they bring another top 9 guy, I don't know if Robertson's back. If they don't, I think they're going to give him every opportunity to battle and compete for a top 9 spot.
I also think that the Bobby McMahon emergence, that's what took that spot away from him. Like Bobby McMahon showed more, not just as with his offense, but also with his defense. Mm-hmm. And that's why Nick Robertson lost his spot. So I think that to me was really the reason he's not an everyday player for this team. And so, that's kind of how things go. And it's a good thing for Bobby. He was deserving the opportunity. I was really upset that he got hurt because that was something they truly missed in the playoffs. But, for Robertson, it was an opportunity to compete. And unfortunately, the better player kind of beat him out.
All right. The WWE is coming to Toronto this weekend. Dave, you're going to the show?
I'm going to SmackDown and Money in the Bank. Double dose. All right.
Double dosage. SmackDown on Friday, Money in the Bank on Saturday. Then NXT is also here on the Sunday, but apparently Dave's too big time for the minor leaguers. That's why he's never been to a Marley game either. No, it's okay, Dave. I get it. You're big, Mr. Big League, Mr. Big Shot, Dave Morisuti. Pay no attention to the guys who are grinding away. I get it. It's all good. But that being said, Cody Rhodes has some special Toronto Maple Leaf merch that will be available. And he sent out this video onto ye old Twitter sphere showing the good people of Toronto what to expect this weekend. Let's take a look.
Hey, Toronto, this is the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, or I should say the undisputed WWE champion, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. I am very excited about Money in the Bank coming to Toronto next weekend. Thank you for having us in your fair city and Leaf Nation. This little number will be on sale there. Obviously, you guys know about doing the work, have done the work, and next season hope to finish your story, not only this shirt, but this wonderful custom weight belt, again, for Leaf Nation. Toronto, thank you very much. I look forward to Money in the Bank. I look forward to seeing you all there.
All right, Dave, your thoughts.
That belt is so nice.
It is a cool belt, but here's my thing.
I'm not a big weight belt guy, though.
Sure. Yeah, I would never buy it. But anyways, besides the point. What does Cody Rhodes have to do with Canada? What does Cody Rhodes have to do with Toronto? What does he have to do with the Maple Leafs? Like when Edge had his promo shirts, it made complete sense, right? Edge is a diehard Leaf. He's Canadian. He's from Toronto. It all made sense. Easy to market. What the hell does Cody Rhodes have to do with the city of Toronto or the Maple Leafs where he thinks he can market the Leafs and him as a team to get why?
So 2 parts to that. One, the top Canadians that will be here this weekend, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, both from Quebec, will not want anything to do with any branding with the Leafs. That I know. Okay. So that's, I think, part one. Part two, Cody Rhodes is the hottest thing out right now.
Yeah, I get it, but
and you don't have Edge. Like it would have been Edge, but Edge is not in WWE anymore. So they went with the next best thing.
So let me so let's say it was in Pittsburgh. Okay, is he walking in there with Pittsburgh? Hey, Pittsburgh Penguins fan. Hey, Penguins Nation. Like, is it just whatever city? Insert here.
I mean, I got a Stone Cold shirt that says Toronto 316. And has they do like Stone Cold Steve Austin had him for every city when he was around. So they just marketed it to the city.
Didn't that become like an Austin Matthews shirt though? Also, like Austin 316, people use it as like a Matthews.
Yeah,
like I remember being at the draft and people were rocking those shirts when I was there in Buffalo in 2016 when the Leafs took him first overall. They were rocking like Austin 316 shirts. But it was like Austin 2016, maybe they made it. But either way, I do remember that. I don't know. I find it weird. I'll be honest with you. Like,
I've already got a bunch of people, like a few people, because I'm going to be there, asked me to get the shirt.
Sure. Bye. Cool. To each his own. To each their own.
If you're not going to the event and you want one, go to the rec room. Apparently, they're going to be doing a pop-up shop there, which
cool.
Smart. Like, have you ever tried getting merch at a WWE event, Mike?
Yeah, it's a 40-minute line every time.
Yeah, I hate it.
It's brutal. Brutal. Actually, you're usually better off getting it before the show outside. So they put up pop-up tents outside too in like Maple Leaf Square. Usually better off doing that there than inside. Well, there's a lot more options inside, I suppose. So kind of pick your battles. But anyway, hey, if that's your thing, go for it. There's no tie for me. And there's got to be a hook and it's got to make sense. With Edge, made total sense. Cody Rhodes, just feels like you're exploiting the city of Toronto. I just don't like it. It's just a money grab. Edge made sense. This is just a money grab. I don't like it. I'll be honest. I'm for the people. I don't want anyone getting scammed out here. All right. Anything else?
No, we're gonna talk development camp tomorrow anyway, so we'll have a lot more to talk on this week. I know we were thinking about talking today, but there's even when we're in like the lull period, there's still a lot to talk about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast. Thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on X at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morisuti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode tomorrow. We will be breaking down what's going on at Leafs development camp. We can see if we'll hear about any young stars making an impression in their first little bit of action with the Buds. So we'll keep you informed on what's going on there on tomorrow's show. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.